Have you ever wondered why, after every door shut, after every promise got broken, after everyone who swore they would stand by you vanished without a word, you are still here? Why are you still standing when everything around you seems set on making you fall? Listen closely, because what I am about to share may challenge everything you thought you knew about the season you are walking through. You have been viewing your situation through the lens of loss, but God may be viewing it through the lens of preparation. You have been counting the people who left, while God has been preparing the people who are coming. You have been mourning the hands that refuse to help you, while God has been positioning a hand you have not yet seen. There are moments when financial breakthrough does not come through a miracle falling from the sky. There are moments when God chooses a person, plants a thought in their heart, opens their eyes to your need, and turns them into a vessel of provision. The reason this message matters so much is because many people are on the edge of giving up right before God reveals the source of help they never saw coming. You know what pain feels like. You know what it feels like to carry burdens nobody else notices. You know what it feels like to smile in public while quietly calculating bills, applications, deadlines, and pressures that seem to grow every week. Some people think financial struggles are only about money, but they are mistaken. Financial pressure attacks peace. It attacks confidence. It attacks sleep. It attacks relationships. It makes a person question their future. It makes them wonder whether their effort even matters. When every door seems shut, when every opportunity seems delayed, when every plan seems interrupted, the human mind starts asking dangerous questions. What if nothing changes? What if this is all my life will ever be? What if God has forgotten me? But those questions are born from exhaustion, not truth. Exhaustion can make a temporary situation look permanent. Weariness can make a closed chapter feel like the whole story. Yet God sees far beyond the chapter that currently holds your attention. Think about the people who misunderstood you. Think about those who walked away when you needed support. Think about the ones who watched your struggle and offered judgment instead of compassion. Some of them assumed your difficulty meant you lacked value. Some assumed your delay meant you lacked purpose. Some looked at your circumstances and drew conclusions about your future. But people often judge what they can see, while God works through what cannot yet be seen. The same people who dismissed your potential do not have the authority to decide your destiny. The same voices that questioned your worth cannot cancel God's plans. What if the rejection that hurt you was actually making room for a different connection? What if the closed door kept you from leaning on the wrong source? What if God allowed certain relationships to end because He knew they could never carry the blessing tied to your future? There is something powerful about reaching the end of your own strength. Nobody enjoys that place. Nobody asks for it. Yet it is often there that God teaches lessons that comfort never could. When every backup plan disappears, when every human solution becomes unreliable, when every shortcut fails, a person is forced to face a deeper reality. Your provision has never been limited by human resources. Your provision has never depended only on the economy, a company, a paycheck, a client, or a connection. Those things can be channels, but they are not the source. God remains the source. And when God decides to provide, He is not bound by the limitations that frighten people. He can create opportunities where none seem to exist. He can stir generosity in unexpected hearts. He can connect people who would otherwise never cross paths. He can arrange circumstances with a precision no human strategy could ever match. Right now, there may be someone you have never met who is moving closer to an assignment tied to your life. You may not know their name. You may not recognize their face. They may not recognize yours either. Yet God sees both stories at the same time. While you have been praying for provision, God may be preparing a person. While you have been asking for relief, God may be positioning a relationship. While you have been focused on your immediate struggle, God may be arranging events far beyond what you can see. This is why you cannot let disappointment convince you that nothing is happening. Some of the most important movements of God happen long before visible evidence appears. Seeds grow underground before they ever break through the surface. Preparation often happens in silence before it shows up in public. I want you to understand something many people miss. When God uses someone to bless you financially, it is not just about money changing hands. It is about God proving He has not abandoned you. It is about God showing that your story is still under His authority. It is about God reminding you that human rejection cannot cancel divine provision. The blessing itself matters, but the message behind the blessing matters even more. Message is this: I see you. I know what you need. I know what you have endured. I know the tears nobody witnessed. I know the battles nobody understood, and I am still working in your life. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not the amount received. Sometimes the greatest miracle is realizing that God was paying attention the whole time. The hardest battle was never the lack of money. It was the silent war inside your heart that began the moment. Disappointment convinced you that no one could ever be trusted again. Every broken promise built another wall around your expectations. Every unanswered call made you believe help would always arrive too late. Every time you watched others receive opportunities while you stood waiting, another piece of hope seemed to fade. That is how discouragement works. It slowly teaches you to expect nothing, so that when God begins to move, you struggle to recognize His hand. But hear this with every part of your soul. God is not limited by the failures of people. Human beings may change their minds overnight, but God does not abandon His purpose because someone else failed to keep their word. If one person refuses to become part of your answer, God is fully able to raise another. If one opportunity collapses, He is not left searching for a replacement. He already knows the next path before the previous one closes. Your financial breakthrough does not depend on a single employer, a single client, a single relative, or a single connection. It depends on the God who owns every opportunity you have not yet seen. That is why you must not let bitterness become the lock that keeps your own heart imprisoned. The enemy wants you to become so wounded by yesterday that you reject tomorrow before it even arrives. Wants you to believe that every offer hides betrayal, that every helping hand carries hidden motives, and that every open door will eventually slam shut. But God is calling you to see beyond the scars. He is reminding you that He has countless ways to provide that your imagination has never considered. A conversation you almost ignored could become the start of a new season. A recommendation from someone who barely knows you could place you where your talent is finally recognized. A person who has quietly noticed your integrity may suddenly decide to invest in your future without you ever asking. None of these moments happen by luck. They happen because God knows how to align people, timing, favor, wisdom, and opportunity with perfect precision. While you have been counting what you lost, God has been arranging what you are about to receive. While others judged your present condition, God was looking at the future He already prepared. Never confuse a delayed answer with a denied future. The waiting has not been empty. It has been shaping your character, exposing false relationships, teaching you discernment, and preparing you to carry a blessing without letting it replace your dependence on God. When the answer comes, you will not say, "People saved me." You will know the truth deep within your spirit. God simply chose a person as the instrument, but He alone remained the source from beginning to end. There is a reason God sometimes waits until every human option has vanished before He reveals the person He has chosen to help you. If the blessing arrived too early, you might have mistaken the person for the source. If the answer came before the pressure reached its peak, you might have trusted human strength more than God's power. But now you know what it feels like to knock on doors that never opened. You know what it feels like to send messages that were ignored, to make sacrifices that no one appreciated, to carry responsibilities while wondering how you would pay for tomorrow. You know the sting of being treated as if your struggles were invisible. You know the exhaustion of smiling in public while privately asking God how much longer you could keep going. Those experiences were painful, but they also stripped away every false foundation. They taught you that security cannot be built on people because people can change without warning. They can applaud you one season and criticize you the next. They can promise loyalty today and disappear tomorrow. But God has never needed perfect people to accomplish His perfect purpose. He has always been able to use ordinary individuals to deliver extraordinary answers at the exact moment they are needed. Think about how many times your life has changed because of one conversation, one introduction, one unexpected opportunity, or one decision that seemed ordinary at first. Entire futures can shift because God moves one heart. He does not need crowds to establish your breakthrough. He does not need thousands of supporters to rewrite your story. One person with genuine compassion. One employer willing to recognize your value. One business owner searching for someone exactly like you. One mentor who sees potential where others saw failure. One customer who believes in your work. One unexpected recommendation. One generous act inspired by God. These seemingly small moments can become the doorway into a completely different life. Never underestimate what God can accomplish through a single willing heart. The world measures influence by numbers, but God often transforms lives through individuals who simply choose to obey His direction. Do not assume that because you cannot identify that person today, they do not exist. Some of the greatest answers from God begin long before you become aware of them. While you have been praying for provision, God may already be shaping circumstances in another person's life. He may be increasing their resources, expanding their influence, opening their understanding, or placing your name in their thoughts at moments they cannot explain. They may not even realize why they feel compelled to reach out, recommend you, encourage you, or create an opportunity for you. What seems like coincidence to the world is often the quiet precision of God's wisdom unfolding behind the scenes. He sees connections before they exist. He prepares relationships before introductions happen. He arranges meetings before calendars are written. Long before your need became visible to anyone around you, it was already fully known to God. That is why despair is such a dangerous place to remain. Despair convinces you that because you cannot see movement, nothing is happening. It tells you that silence means abandonment. It whispers that delayed provision is proof that God has forgotten your address. But silence is not proof of God's absence. Some of His greatest works happen where human eyes cannot observe them. A seed buried beneath the ground appears lifeless long before it breaks through the surface. Deep foundations are laid before impressive buildings rise into the sky. The strongest bridges are supported by structures hidden beneath the water. In the same way, God often builds your future in places you cannot inspect. While you are focused on what has not happened yet, He is preparing everything that must happen first. so that when the blessing arrives, it will rest upon a foundation that can sustain it. Perhaps you have been measuring God's faithfulness by the balance in your bank account. Perhaps every unpaid bill has made you question whether your prayers still matter. But financial hardship does not cancel God's authority. Temporary lack does not mean permanent defeat. There have always been seasons when people of sincere faith walked through scarcity before stepping into abundance. Those seasons were never meaningless. They exposed fear, refined priorities, strengthened endurance, and revealed who remained faithful even when there was nothing obvious to gain. God is not interested merely in changing your finances. He is interested in shaping the person who will manage the blessing with wisdom, humility, gratitude, and compassion. Wealth without character often becomes a burden instead of a blessing. Provision without wisdom can disappear as quickly as it arrives. That is why God's timing is never separated from God's preparation. Refuse to let betrayal convince you that every helping hand hides selfish intentions. Yes, there are people who manipulate. Yes, there are people who give only to control others. Yes, there are those who make promises they never intend to keep. But if you allow those experiences to define every future relationship, you will unknowingly close the door on the very people God may send into your life. Discernment is different from suspicion. Discernment listens to God while remaining wise. Suspicion assumes everyone deserves rejection before they have spoken a word. One protects your heart with wisdom. The other imprisons your heart with fear. God did not preserve you through every disappointment so that fear would become your permanent companion. He preserved you so that when the right people arrive, you will recognize them with gratitude instead of pushing them away because of wounds inflicted by someone else. Lift your expectations beyond what your circumstances are telling you today. Do not wake up every morning expecting another disappointment, simply because disappointment has become familiar. The God who carried you through seasons of lack has not exhausted His ability to provide. He still knows your name. He still sees every hidden tear, every private prayer, every sacrifice no one applauded, and every moment you chose integrity when compromise seemed easier. Nothing has escaped His attention. Your honesty was not wasted. Your perseverance was not ignored. Your quiet faithfulness was not forgotten. At the appointed time, God can move through one person's obedience in a way that accomplishes more than years of struggling in your own strength. When that day comes, you will understand that every delay, every painful lesson, and every closed door prepared you to recognize a truth that can never be taken away. God alone is your source, and every person He uses is simply a channel through which His faithful provision flows. There is something you must never forget when your heart begins to grow weary. God is not only concerned with giving you money. He is concerned with protecting you from the kind of money that would destroy your peace. There are opportunities that look attractive on the surface, but would quietly drain your integrity. There are offers that promise quick relief, but carry hidden chains. There are people who appear generous, yet every gift comes with invisible strings attached. If God has delayed certain financial opportunities, do not assume He was withholding goodness from you. Sometimes He was shielding you from relationships that would have demanded your values, your dignity, or your freedom as the price of temporary provision. What feels like rejection today may one day become the very reason you stand with gratitude instead of regret. God sees consequences long before you see opportunities. He sees motives hidden behind smiles. He sees conversations that have not yet happened. He sees dangers that never make themselves visible until it is too late. That is why His not yet can be just as loving as His yes. Never confuse divine protection with divine abandonment. There were moments when you believed your greatest need was money, but God knew your greatest need was discernment. Had certain doors opened when you desperately wanted them to, you might have entered places that would have slowly stolen your purpose. Had certain people welcomed you into their plans, they may have celebrated your usefulness while quietly exploiting your weakness. God is able to rescue you from disasters you never even realized existed. Think about the opportunities you mourned that later proved to be disappointments for others. Think about the relationships you begged to keep that eventually revealed selfish intentions. Looking back, you can already see traces of God's unseen protection. The same God who guarded you yesterday is still watching over tomorrow. He has not become less faithful simply because the waiting has grown longer. If He closed the door, it was never because He ran out of resources. It was because He refused to let your future be built upon a foundation that could not endure. Do not allow the opinions of people to define your expectations of what God can still accomplish. There will always be voices eager to explain why your situation is impossible. Some will tell you that your age has become a limitation. Others will point to your lack of experience, your past failures, your financial history, your education, or your current circumstances as proof that your season has already passed. They speak as though your future is controlled by statistics. But God has never been confined by human calculations. The same people who dismiss your potential today may one day struggle to explain how your life changed so dramatically. They will search for natural explanations because they cannot understand how God quietly works beyond the limits of human reasoning. Never surrender your hope to people whose vision extends no further than what they can already see. God specializes in preparing answers that stay invisible until the appointed moment arrives. Perhaps the greatest struggle you face is not poverty itself, but the constant temptation to compare your journey with everyone else's. You see someone else celebrating a promotion while you are still searching for stability. You watch another family enjoying abundance while you carefully calculate every expense. Comparison quietly whispers that God has overlooked you. But comparison is a poor judge of truth because it only measures visible outcomes, never hidden preparation. You have no idea what lessons God is teaching beneath the surface of your own life. You cannot see the strength being formed through every disappointment you survived with integrity. You cannot measure the wisdom being developed through every difficult decision you made when no one was watching. God is shaping more than your circumstances. He is shaping your character, and character often grows in places where applause never reaches. One day when the blessing arrives, it will rest upon a heart that understands both gratitude and responsibility because it remembers every difficult season that came before it. Do not despise small beginnings or quiet opportunities simply because they do not resemble the breakthrough you imagine. God often introduces extraordinary seasons through ordinary moments that appear insignificant at first. A simple conversation may become the beginning of a lifelong partnership. A modest opportunity may open the path to greater influence. A single recommendation may accomplish what years of striving could never produce. The world teaches people to overlook small doors while chasing spectacular entrances. But God's wisdom often leads in the opposite direction. He watches to see whether you remain faithful with what seems ordinary before entrusting you with what appears extraordinary. Every honest effort, every act of integrity, every disciplined decision, and every expression of gratitude prepares you for greater responsibility. Never assume that because something begins quietly, it cannot end magnificently. God's greatest works often begin where human attention is absent. So keep your heart open without surrendering your discernment. Continue working without surrendering your hope. Continue praying without allowing delay to convince you that your voice no longer reaches heaven. Continue believing that God is already moving beyond the limits of your vision, somewhere beyond what you can currently see. He may already be stirring compassion in someone's heart, creating an opportunity with your name attached to it, or aligning circumstances that no amount of human effort could arrange on your own. When that moment finally arrives, it will not merely increase your finances. It will restore your confidence that God never stopped working, even during the seasons when everything around you seemed painfully still. Do not be surprised if your greatest financial breakthrough arrives in a way that completely humbles your understanding. We often imagine that God will answer our prayers through the people we already know, connections we have carefully built, or the plans we have spent years perfecting. But God has never been confined by human expectations. He delights in reminding you that His wisdom is higher than your assumptions and His ability reaches far beyond your calculations. The very person you overlooked may become the one who opens the door you could never force open yourself. Someone who owes you nothing may choose to show you extraordinary kindness. A conversation you almost canceled may become the turning point of your future. A recommendation made when you were not even present may place your name before an opportunity greater than anything you could have arranged alone. When God decides that the time has come, He does not struggle to find a way. He creates one. He does not panic because your resources have reached their limit. He simply demonstrates that His resources never depended on yours in the first place. That is why you must stop believing that your current condition has the authority to predict your future. Today's limitations cannot imprison tomorrow's possibilities when God is directing your steps. There is also a reason God often allows you to go through seasons where you cannot rely on anyone except Him. Those seasons reveal what comfort has been quietly replacing faith. When every familiar source disappears, you begin to discover whether your confidence rested in God or in the people God had previously used. It is a painful lesson, but it is a freeing one. The moment you realize that every human being is only a channel and never the source, fear begins to lose its grip. You no longer panic when one opportunity disappears because you understand that God has countless others. You no longer believe your future has collapsed because one investor declined, one employer rejected you, one client walked away, or one relationship ended. Your peace stops depending on human decisions because you have learned that no person's refusal can overturn what God has already determined for your life. That confidence changes the way you wake up every morning. Instead of asking, who will help me? Your heart begins to declare God already knows who He will use. Instead of living with desperate dependence on people's approval, you begin walking with quiet confidence that the one who sees every hidden need has never lost sight of your situation. Perhaps you have spent too much time mourning the people who left while failing to notice the people God has been bringing closer. Sometimes we become so consumed with those who rejected us that we overlook those who genuinely care. We become so determined to reopen closed doors that we ignore the new entrance God has already unlocked. Not every relationship that leaves your life is a loss. Some departures create the space necessary for healthier, wiser, and more faithful relationships to enter. God understands that certain voices must become silent before you can clearly hear the voices that carry wisdom, encouragement, opportunity. If everyone from your past had remained, You might never have recognized the value of those God intended to bring into your life. Every season of separation is not punishment. Sometimes it is preparation. Sometimes it is protection. Sometimes it is the clearing of a path that your eyes cannot yet recognize. Trust that God knows the difference between those who merely occupy your life and those who are assigned to strengthen it. When the blessing finally arrives, guard your heart against pride, just as carefully as you guarded it against despair. Never look down on those who are standing today where you once stood yesterday. Remember the nights when anxiety stole your sleep. Remember the prayers whispered through tears when no one else knew how heavy your burdens had become. Remember the moments when a single act of kindness restored enough hope to keep moving forward. Those memories are not meant to shame you. They are meant to keep you compassionate. The greatest financial blessings are not measured only by what enters your hands, but by what they produce within your heart. If prosperity makes you forget humility, you have gained money while losing wisdom. But if God's provision makes you more grateful, more generous, more patient, and more compassionate toward those who are still struggling, then the blessing has accomplished something far greater than increasing your bank account. It has transformed your character. That kind of transformation